Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ask Huda. I'm your host, Jamil Rashid, and I'm with today Sheikh Muhammad Salah. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for being with us on Ask Huda.
Wa jazakum.
Okay, let's just remind you of our telephone number so you too can be with us on Ask Huda. Our country code is 202, then it's 38555 248 or 249. Again, send your emails to ask@huda.tv. And just two reminders, please, if you do call us today, turn down your television sets. And the second notice, the same notice, please call early. Sheikh, we had a question from Brother Khalid from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He was actually asking for us to give advice to the Muslims. He says many of our brothers and sisters spend a lot of their wealth on entertaining themselves, on buying themselves goods and chattel and so forth. He says, but when it comes to their Islam, their deen, they don't really spend a lot of money towards it. And he gave examples of learning Quran, buying tafsir and so forth. What's our advice to our brothers and sisters in general regarding this issue, Sheikh?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala nabiyyihi wa Mustafah. Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. Well, praise due to Allah. We praise Him and we seek His help. Whomsoever Allah guides is a truly guided one, and whomsoever Allah leaves astray, no one can show him guidance. I bear witness that there is no God worthy of worship but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad, peace be upon him, is his last messenger. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam informed us in a hadith which is judged as a sound hadith. He said, لا تزول قدم عبد يوم القيامة حتى يسأل عن أربع. This is a very interesting hadith. On the Day of Judgment, no one will be dismissed before having to answer 4 questions. And there is no exception. Every person must answer these questions. One of the 4 questions, of course, is related to his wealth. وَعَنْ مَالِهِ. And this particular question concerning his wealth would have 2 parts. How did he earn it, and how did he spend it? So we're not only required to make certain that we earn our living from lawful sources, but also we will be held accountable for how did we spend our wealth which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala entrusted us with. It is true that's a provision Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deposited in our hands. We did work until we earned it, but still Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us even concerning the lawful. He says, عَزَّ وَجَلَّ وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. Eat and drink, but do not be extravagant. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like the wastefuls, those who spend wastefully, without control. So one is required to know how and where he spends his lawful wealth, which he earned from lawful sources. The best means of spending ever is to support the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a very broad word. Fi sabilillah covers everything. Covers sending the armies to defend the Muslim territories, to spread the deen of Allah. It covers spending for the cause of spreading the word through giving da'wah, preaching, printing publications, and nowadays, of course, spending on the media, Islamic media, to propagate the mission of the Prophet ﷺ, to inform the non-Muslims about the deen of Allah, and to correct for the vast majority of Muslims misunderstandings which were earned due to their cultural practices, and correct that in their minds. That's all under the same category of fi sabilillahi azza wa jal. The best spending is a spending which lasts. We all understand that whatever we eat and we drink, or what we wear and tear, this is for our dunya. It is lawful earning, lawful spending, but it's gone. And that's why Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam once corrected the statement that al-Mu'mineen Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha wa ardaha made when she said about a sheep that they slaughtered and she distributed most of it, and she only saved the shank for the Prophet ﷺ. She said, Ya Rasulullah, it's all gone except for the shoulder. So Nabi ﷺ said, no, la ya Aisha, nay, it's all been saved. It has been all saved. The part which we give in a charity, this is our saving. This is our investment. This is the part which would really last. The part which we eat, then excrete, that's gone. Even though we understand that as long as you're feeding your family members and you're providing for them their needs, you earn a reward for that as well. But the greatest is for which you deposit for your hereafter. And the best of all is the one which you spend to, number one, introduce the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether to Muslims who are not aware of it or non-Muslims. And to inform people properly how to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why I always like to mention the hadith of Uthman ibn Affan, in which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَ. So there is actually a sequence. There is steps have to be taken. Number one is learning. Then number two is teaching. You cannot teach if you're not aware. Also, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the sound hadith, which is narrated by Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu arda, and it's narrated in different narrations. إذا مات ابن آدم, in another dialect, إذا مات الإنسان, whenever the son of Adam or whenever the human being dies, انقطع عمله إلا من ثلاث. All the revenues of the good deeds will stop, will discontinue, except from three ways. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, having a continuous charity, this is one of the deeds which would guarantee the continuity of your reward even after your death. Leaving after you a righteous son or daughter, a child whom you raised properly, educated properly, you taught them how to be committed towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that they pray for you after your death. That's too helpful, and it will continue to add to your account of your good deeds. And the third, أو علم ينتفع به, a person who taught knowledge. So teaching the useful knowledge is a treasure, and that cannot be achieved unless if somebody learns first. All of that requires spending, requires money. We all know that many of the wealthy Muslims send their kids to Harvard to study law and medicine here and there, but very few who pay attention to studying Islamic law or studying the Sharia or teaching later on to be an Islamic studies teacher and so on. Well, if somebody thinks about it with intelligence, will find out that this is needed and this is needed, but teaching what really helps human beings to recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better is superior. So the smart person would give a priority to what would guarantee to him a greater reward, an everlasting one. And I'm not saying, or I'm not calling the viewers to stop sending their kids to medical schools or to be a dentist or a lawyer or an engineer at all. But I'm saying, give a portion of that to study the deen.
They go hand in hand, basically.
Exactly. In parallel tracks, to study both religious knowledge, Quran, tafsir, the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, hadith, and most important, aqeedah, of course, in addition to studying your regular worldly sciences, science, math, whatever. But you have to understand what's really more useful and needed is to learn the knowledge which will enable you to recognize Allah better. And the most honorable and noble spending will be the spending for this cause.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, we have our first caller of the day, Brother Rashid from the United Arab Emirates. Brother, you're live on Ask Huda. Your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum, ya Sheikh.
Wa alaikum
Alaykum
assalam wa
rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So my question is that once I missed my Dhuhr prayer,
No.
and when I went to the masjid, I forget, to be honest, and there was a Asr prayers. So I pray Asr. After that, when I finished, so I asked my one of Arab friend that this thing happened with me. So what he told me that Khurshid, when Asr prayers were you attended, so you can make a niyah that you are praying Dhuhr. And later on you can pray Asr alone.
No.
So I want to ask this. This is fact. We can do this if we miss in this case.
طيب.
Number two, sir, that the medicines where it is written alcohol for cough and for other things, can we take that medicines?
Okay.
And number three, I can give the sadaqah to the non-Muslims or not?
جيد.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome, brother. Brother Qurashid there from the United Arab Emirates. Okay, Sheikh, I've got a question here from Zayyan from Oman. She's asking about the ritual, the Islamic ritual after somebody passes away. She says, we in our locality, when somebody passes away, we recite the Quran for them before they are buried. Now this ritual of reciting the Quran, she wants to know, does it have any basis in the deen of Allah?
No. The rituals which are common in several cultures, Islamic cultures unfortunately, of gathering people together to recite, either to make a khatma, finish the recitation of the entire Quran, and then on the 40th, after the person dies, 40 days later, they gather once again and they do another khatma, then a year later they do that. All these traditions are mere innovations, and there is no reward in it whatsoever. I'm afraid that due to committing an innovation and adding to the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala something which is not in it, that the person will be committing a sin. Due to the hadith, which is a huge and a main reference in issues related to innovations. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Man ahdatha fi amrina hada ma laysa minhu fahuwa radd." And the word radd is very severe. That if somebody adds or innovates anything in our religion, it will be rejected. There is no hope that this deed will be rewarded for, even if you have a sincere and a good intention in it. Simply because the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to the three companions who were companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not only that, they wanted to compete with him with regards to doing good righteous deeds. When they inquired from one of his wives as how is the worship of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they said to one another, then we have to compete with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's in the foremost position. So one of them made a vow that he will not pray at night. He will not sleep at night. Rather, he would spend the entire night, every single night, praying. And the second made a vow that he will fast on every single day. And the third made a vow that he will not get married at all. He will not touch women. Once the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was informed with that, he gathered the community and he did not discuss the sincerity of their intention, because it's understood that they were sincere. They were not trying to do or commit a sin, an obvious sin. No, they were trying to compete with regards to doing good, righteous deeds. But they were too much extravagant. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, I am the most fearful one of all of you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أَنَا أَتْقَاكُمْ لِلَّهِ. And I'm the dearest and the most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, he knew about Allah more than anybody else. Yet, I sleep sometimes and I pray sometimes. I fast some days and I skip some days. And I'm married. So whosoever turns away from my tradition, he is not from me. He does not belong to me. Why am I saying this hadith? Because always with every innovation, by the way, is not related to committing an obvious sin. No, it is adding something in the worship, in the ibadat. So when you discuss it with somebody who says, oh, is reciting the Quran haram? We're doing a good thing. We're reciting the Quran. How could you say this is haram? No, we did not say recitation of the Quran haram. Rather, we said that the kayfiyya, as how did you recite the Quran, and when, and why. So when you answer the three questions, you find them completely off the track. Not the same way that the Prophet ﷺ ordered us and instructed us to do it. Then when we examine the record of the life of the Prophet ﷺ and his companions, including the four rightly guided khulafa, none of that, we will find that none of that was practiced at all. These innovations were new, and they were brought up to the ummah way after the Prophet ﷺ died, and his companions, and even at-tabi'in. So it is best we avoid that, and once we bury somebody, we pause for some time, 15, 20 minutes, half hour, by his grave, making dua, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cover him with his mercy, to grant him his forgiveness for his sins, and to admit him to his paradise. This is what the Prophet ﷺ did, and this is what he ordered his companions to do when he said, "Istaghfiru li'akhikum fa'innahu al-ana yus'al." Ask for forgiveness for your brother, since he's being questioned right now in the grave. Then they're dismissed. They don't hold a specific place or a gathering where they accept the condolence. They do not get a reciter of the Quran and they pay him several thousands so that he would recite selected verses from the Quran about heaven and about the righteous ones and entering paradise and neglect the other verses. All of that is totally innovated in the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it will be rejected. If you love the deceased, whether he's a family member or a friend or somebody whom you loved, you should not exceed what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did with his beloved ones, with his companions once they died. And if you have some money that you would like to spend, give it in a charity with the intention of donating the reward of this for the deceased. Would that help him? Yes, it will help. But the other one would not help by any means.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, we have now Sister Razina from the United Arab Emirates. Sister, you're live, and ask her your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Salah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, I have a couple of questions, and the first one is regarding the bid'ah which a lot of people do. Like, I live with my mother-in-law, and she insists on making some food and then, preparing the food and then taking the name of the descendants of the Prophet ﷺ and, giving nazar on the food. Now, this is very common in Shiaism. They do that a lot. But I don't do that. But she asked me to prepare the food for her. So is that okay? I have no choice. Maybe what I thought I'd do is I'll cook the food and I will just make the intention, the niyyah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala making this for you in your name. And then maybe whatever she wants to say, she can say on the food. Now, is that okay, or I should, I cannot say no to her, so I have basically no choice here, And that's the first question. The second question is, I cannot ask very openly, but this is regarding family planning. Now, I know family planning is not in Islam, but what was the Prophet ﷺ's way? Because I heard some other ways, and then somebody told me it's not right. So I would like to know, because I've got, mashallah, 3 children. The oldest one is 21 years old, and the youngest is 9. So I don't know if I can handle any more kids, but I would like to know what is the safest way of doing something which is not prohibited in Islam.
Okay.
All right. Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh. Thank you for the meal. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sister Rosina from the UAE. Now, Sister asked a question about bid'ah there, Sheikh, and I wanted just to open this up slightly, because many people may be watching and it's not really about death, about what to recite, but some people say, well, okay, Sheikh, mashallah, jazakallah for the advice, but it's not easy. I mean, our communities make it very difficult. We've got pressure from families to conform to doing certain rituals, like you said, which are not from Islam. I mean, how do we go about tackling this? This is the biggest question sometimes, because you can do it to yourself, but what about if your brother, your sister, your uncle, your aunties, the whole community does a ritual?
True. Look, number one, we have to understand that Satan and his offspring have given up on converting Muslims or demolishing this religion being. And the message that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ completed, which is Islam. But they haven't given up yet on wasting their word of even religious acts of worship, simply by modifying them, changing them. And this is what's happening exactly. A shaitan does not come to one and say, hey, stop praying, it's time for fun, let's go watch a movie, or spend the night in a nightclub. Never happens. A shaitan does not mislead somebody who fasts on Mondays and Thursdays and say, stop fasting, take a break. Why do you do that? People are just having fun and eating whatever. Or says to somebody who's not eating pork, what is the difference? Let's just try it. It won't hurt. It tastes good. It might taste good. No, he doesn't say that. Rather, he comes to you in the midst of your worship and he tries to mess it up so that it will be rejected completely. Who will be blamed for that? You will be blamed for that. Why? Because the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, before he died, تركنا على المحاجة البيضاء ليلها كنهارها لا يزيغ عنها إلا هالك. Everything was explained in details. ما فرطنا في الكتاب من شيء. And he says عز وجل اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. This verse, the people of the scripture envy Muslims for it. The message of Islam is the most perfect and complete message. We're not in need for any modifications We're not in need for any additions. We're only in need for one thing: follow and do not innovate. That will be more than sufficient. There is another analysis, which is people who say that we're doing this as a mean of qurbah, to get nearer to Allah, get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because we love Him, so we want to do extra. I say, subhanallah. Allah the Almighty said in the sound hadith that the best thing we can do to be beloved by Allah is fulfill what Allah has ordained on you. Al-Fara'id. ما تقرب إلي عبدي بشيء أحب إلي مما افترضته عليه. Then you finish all the fara'id and all the ordainment. Next, there is nawafil. And by the way, if you spend the rest of your life doing the nawafil, you're not going to finish them. So why do you exceed the limit and go to innovations or bid'ah since you haven't finished a nawafil yet, the voluntary acts? When you just study the sunnah and learn every ibadah, whether it is bodily, financial, or consists of both bodily and financial, such as the Hajj, financial such as zakah, bodily such as fasting and prayers, every ordainment or every fard has its voluntary or nawafil, voluntary ibadat. So when you fulfill that in addition to the fard, you're all set. There is no need to add anything to that. Adding spices would only ruin it, would only mess up your ibadah. So number one, you need to be convinced yourself. The only way is what the Prophet ﷺ said. عَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي وَسُنَّةِ الْخُلَفَاءِ الرَّاشِدِينَ مِنْ بَعْدِ أو الْمَهْدِيِّينَ مِنْ بَعْدِ. Stick to my tradition and the traditions of the rightly guided khulafa after me. And that, of course, right away refers to the four rightly guided khulafa, Abu Bakr, wa Umar, wa Uthman, wa Ali. Because whatever they did was stemming from the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Imagine Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, when Umar ibn Khattab came asking him, let's put the Quran in one book. Some people think that it was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq who compiled the Quran. False. Who compiled the Quran first? The Quran was compiled first in the heart of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam by Jibreel alayhi salam. Then the Prophet sallallahu memorized it all, and it was compiled during the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam by hundreds of the companions. Some compiled it by memorization by the hearts, and some have various surahs, and it was all written but distributed here and there. All what Umar asked from Abu Bakr is to gather all of these scriptures from here and there and from the hearts of the Huffaz and put it in one book. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was so reluctant and said, how could I do anything that the Prophet ﷺ did not do? And this is a very obvious ta'ah and obedience, and there is no shubha or doubt of innovation in it. But he was reluctant until he had a council meeting of the senior companions of the Prophet ﷺ to decide concerning this very important and crucial issue. They were afraid to do anything which could be judged as a bid'ah. Nowadays, everybody does something. Imagine, believe it or not, somebody sent me a magazine by one of the Sufi sects, and it says literally that making tawaf, circumambulating around the grave of one of the walis or the peer is superior to performing tawaf around the Kaaba. You see how the shaitan can mislead people? And he's trying to draw evidences from the language, from the Arabic language, and from the Quran, and from the Sunnah. Totally messed up. And unfortunately, if that falls in the hand of somebody who's an ordinary person, I don't have to say ignorant, but he's an ordinary person, he will be captive to this writing or this recorded mess, and unfortunately will go astray. So what is the way out? What is the rescue method? Simply, if anybody says anything to you, then he is required to support this claim from either the Quran or the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, not any Sunnah. Because when somebody says, oh, there is a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says, in the disagreement of my ummah there is mercy. There is false hadith. There is no such hadith. And unfortunately, some scholars rely on this hadith frequently. I say, sorry. When it comes to references, I would only consider a sound reference. Nowadays, it is very simple for any ordinary Muslim to recognize a sound reference from a fabricated or a weak reference. When we have the two main sources of legislation, Al-Quran was Sunnah, then one is safe. This is as far as yourself. Then once you treated yourself and you recognize what's right from what's right or wrong, then the real struggle begins. I understand that many of the viewers who are living in areas where our TV broadcast there have learned the difference between the Sunnah and the Bid'ah, and that has changed their life tremendously. And now when they go back home, they face the challenge of changing the families. So when they say, Allah said, or Rasulullah ﷺ says, right away somebody will say, but the peer or the mullah or this person or that person
it's written or it's in this book. And they,
book. We have really to have a whole episode talking about how to read a book.
Mm-hmm.
Some people rely on, if anything pops up in their mind, say, I read it in some book. Is just having a statement written in a book considered to be a reference? No. And as a matter of fact, taking things out of context. Somebody opens a book or hears an audio where it says, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, may Allah have mercy on him, said this and this and this and that, which is totally the opposite of the truth. And he says, yeah, I have heard it. This guy whom you said that he's a reference said it. So when we go back to the book where he read it, or the tape where he heard it, actually he's taking things out of context. Either he did not hear what's before or what's after, which is simply the Shaykh is quoting what the sects which went astray are using as a reference. So he is using the opposite reference, which the Shaykh came to refute and explain its myth and its mistake. So now, brothers and sisters, you do not just take any medicine simply because somebody says, I tried it and it's good. A lot of things related to taking medicine. Drug-drug interaction, side effects, adverse effects. Maybe it suits him but doesn't suit you. That's why you go to the proper physician and he asks you about your history and whether you can take this medication or not. Simply. I'm not going to do anything simply because my foreparents, my forefathers, or somebody said it's good to do it. I understand that many of the callers are waiting on the line, so I would leave it right there to be continued, inshallah, some other time.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, we've got Sister Rayyan from Oman. Sister, you're live and Ask Huda. Your question, please, Sister.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Brother Jamil and Sheikh Muhammad Salah. I've got a question about people wearing bronze bracelets, which supposedly have magnetic properties in them.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who wear them say that these bracelets are for health reasons and that they cure illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
And now, can you please tell me what is the Islamic ruling on this matter, Sheikh?
Okay.
Shukran.
Okay, barakallah fiki. Sister Rayyan there from Oman. Jazakallah khair for that question, Sister. Okay, Sheikh, I've got a question here, and I think it's something which we discuss many a time, but really is something which is so critical, especially for those brothers and sisters who live in the West. They may even fall into this kind of problem. The sister rang and said, a Muslim man has married a Christian woman. They have a child who is 7 years old now, and now this child is being taught Christianity and the worship of the Christians. I think she's related to the man with a brother or uncle or something close to that. She wants to know how to solve this problem.
In the beginning, I would like to say everything has a price. And this is a very, very regular price, an expected price for people who do not think by heart and mind. Rather, they think with their lust and desire. I love her. I love her. I think she will be the best for me. We went through that 10,000 times, so many times, and we sit with the youth. Somebody was about to marry to a non-Muslim and says, yeah, one day she's going to become a Muslim. What if she doesn't? Or didn't Allah say it's okay? Yes, but where are you marrying her? You're marrying her in a society where you will not have control whatsoever. Once there is a fight, she picks up a fight, or you pick up a fight with her, you're separated, she gets the kids. The kids are Christians. The kids are whatever. The kids do not pray, do not follow any religion. I have seen several cases like that, unfortunately. So please, before acting, think about the future. Why do we get married? If we were to think about why we get married, we would definitely make the right choice. Think, who's going to be the uncle of your kids? Your son and your daughter going to say to you, the grandpa or the grandma or the uncles. To whom? To whom? When they go to visit, on what occasion? On Thanksgiving, on Christmas Eve, on Valentine's Day, on, or on Eid al-Adha, on Eid al-Fitr, and in Ramadan, occasions like that. So, you don't have to be another example in the list. Please, learn from others. Learn from others. Think wisely. Do not satisfy your desire on the account of the future. You're going to spend the rest of your life regretting. I know people who, day and night, living in regret because they made the same mistake. And is this mistake done seldomly or rarely? No, unfortunately, it's done on a daily basis. Brothers and sisters, we marry so that we have children, and our children will be a continuation of our existence, and our children after we die will pray for us, and then when they get married they have another offspring, and all of that adds to the balance of our good deeds, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا وقودها الناس والحجار. O you who believe, protect yourselves and your family members against fire. So you're not just required to save yourself or receive salvation just for yourself, also for those who are under your guardianship. And you have to take all the measures and all the means to protect yourself against fire and against going astray by making the right decision from the beginning. This is a general advice. As far as the dilemma which the brother put himself in, and many people are in the same situation. In Arabic we say there is a very important rule which says ما لا يدرك كله لا يترك جله. If you cannot achieve it all, at least do not leave it all. Try as much as you can. Somebody came to me in Hajj and said, I have to divorce my wife. I said, why? I said, I've been living with her for 15 years and I came now to know that I want to save the kids and she's not going to become Muslim. I tried and she doesn't want to convert. I said, don't push her. If she doesn't want to, لا إكراه في الدين. Said, but I want to live with a Muslim in a happy marriage. And said, why didn't you think about that 15 years ago? Do you have kids? He said, yes. I said, you have the choice before marrying her, whether to marry or not. But now, I command you not to divorce her. Why? Because the kids will be gone. You may not get to see the kids at all. And then they can end up wherever. But now we got to maintain this marriage life simply for the kids, for the sake of the children, not personally, not for your sake.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, just before the break, we're going to take a call from Brother Maqsood from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Brother, you're live and ask Huda your question, please.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I have two questions. Actually, the first one is, I have a younger sister who is of marriage age. And actually, I am also of marriage age. I am around 31, but I want to wait for my sister's marriage so that the responsibility is over. You know, there will be financial responsibility. So I'm waiting for my sister's marriage to be over and then get married myself. But is this allowed? We need to wait for my sister's marriage to be over, or it's not right?
Okay.
And my sister actually was involved in some affair, and unfortunately, many people know about it. So, I know we have to be patient for her and hope for Allah's reward. But now that's all over, and I'm waiting and being patient, and I'm making dua to Allah to make her marriage easy. And my second question is, what is the ruling on trimming the beard? Are we allowed to trim the beard, or just leave it like this? Leave it to grow.
Okay.
Jazakallah khair.
Barakallah fiqh. Brother Maqsood there from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Okay, we're going to take a short break and inshallah return in a couple of minutes. Stay with us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا. Learning how to recite the Quran properly, learning the meaning of what we recite, including the Al-Hakeem from the verses which we recite, trying to implement what we learn in our daily life. We'll listen to the participants and the guests. We'll take your phone calls. We're going to recite live. We'll listen to your recitation and we'll correct it according to the rules and regulations which we'll state in each episode. Now your dream will come true.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Ask Huda. Let me remind you of our telephone numbers. It should come up in your screen now. The country code is 202 and it's 38555 248 or 249. Sheikh, earlier on we had Brother Qurashid from the United Arab Emirates call in. He's asking about a particular situation where he missed Dhuhr Salah and he went to pray the Asr Salah forgetting about the Dhuhr Salah. He prayed Asr. He was told by a friend of his, a colleague of his, that if he was in this situation, he's allowed to have the niyyah for Dhuhr while pray Asr in Jama'ah and later on make up the Dhuhr Salah. What's the situation? What's the ruling regarding this year?
First of all, I would like to alert myself and every Muslim to the danger of postponing the Salah until its time is out. There is a severe warning against that. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. So you got to be very careful. One should not postpone the Salah or delay it until it gets out of its time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ كَانَتْ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ كِتَابًا مَوْقُوتًا. Allah has ordained the Salah to be offered, not just to be offered, but to be offered on fixed times. So one should not postpone the Salah or ignore it until its time is out. Actually, leaving the Salah until its time is out is one of the major sins, is equated to not praying at all. So we have to be very careful with that. Who is exempted from that? One who were asleep or forgot totally. Because the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that in one hadith, and he says that من نام عن صلاة أو نسيها فليؤدها متى ذكرها لا كفارة لها إلا ذلك. Whosoever oversleeps or forgets a prayer, then he should offer it and make it up once he remembers it or once he wakes up. There is no ransom for this mistake but to make it up. This is very important. Just to make it up, not to do anything extra. And it happened once the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam overslept. And all the companions, when they were returning from one of the battles, and they missed Salatul Fajr until it was past sunrise. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, once they woke up, they performed wudu and they called the adhan, then the iqamah, and they prayed, they made up Fajr in Jama'ah. So if somebody was asleep or forgot, he's excused as long as he makes once he remembers or once he wakes up. And we will consider this case one of the cases which the questioner is asking regarding it. What do you do if you, after you woke up, you realize that you missed the Salah, and now you went to the masjid to offer the next prayer, and there already the Jama'ah has been already established? You may join the current Jama'ah with the intention of praying the previous prayer. Two different intentions. The Imam has an intention and the Ma'mum has an intention, does not affect the Salah. Even if the Imam is praying Nafl and the Ma'mum is praying Fard, has no problem whatsoever, and this is the more right opinion. So you may join the Jama'ah with the intention of praying the prayer which you missed. Why? Because according to the vast majority of the jurists, it is required to follow the order of the Salah, to pray it as follows: Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. You cannot pray Asr before Dhuhr. So accordingly, it's best that you pray Dhuhr with the Jama'ah with this intention, and that counts as a Jama'ah for you. Then later on you pray Asr. This is one way. Have you prayed it with the Jama'ah as Asr, then you're required to pray Dhuhr afterward, then pray Asr to keep the order. And Allah knows best.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Okay, next we have Brother Hamza from Kuwait. Brother, you're live on Ask Huda. Your questions, please. Okay, I'm sorry, I think we lost Brother Hamza there. Brother Hamza, if you do want to call back in, I'll ask the directors there to put you straight through. The second question from Brother Qurashid Sheikh from the United Arab Emirates was a question about alcohol in medicine. Are we allowed to take alcohol which is inside medicine, or are we rather allowed to take medicine which has alcohol?
إنما الخمر والميسر والأنصاب والأزلام رجس من عمل الشيطان فاجتنبوه لعلكم تفلحون. This verse is a reference, Quranic reference concerning the prohibition of khamr and others. So alcohol is totally prohibited. Somebody came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, Ya Rasulullah, I don't do it, I don't make wine or alcohol as an intoxicant so that people will drink it and get drunk. I do it as a medicine, as a dawa. The Prophet ﷺ said, nay, it is not a dawa. It was never a medicine. Rather, it is a disease. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never puts a medication or a remedy in anything which He has prohibited. Why He has prohibited it in the first place? So it is haram. So the general ruling is it is not permissible to take food or medicine that contains anything which is prohibited, whether pork derivatives, alcohol or its derivatives. Now we go to some medications which has no alternative. There is no similar medication to it, and it is very crucial and it is very needed. If somebody does not take it, his case will get worsened. The scholar said if the alcohol percentage is very insignificant and very like 0.1% or whatever, then it is permissible in this case. And I would use this pulpit to call upon Muslims, Muslim physicians, Muslim pharmacists, Muslim leaders to make certain in their pharmaceutical plants avoid using alcohol and gelatin. You say it's not possible. I say no, it is very possible and it is very easy. If you travel through Europe and North America, you will find on the same shelf alcohol-free, organic, gelatin-free, no gelatin, no gluten, meaning that there are some customers who are not interested in that, simply maybe because they're vegetarians or because they're following this religious sect or a religious group. So the pharmaceutical companies, big companies, are trying to please the customers. Unfortunately, we don't pay attention to that. If every customer picks up the phone and calls the 800 number on the medication or a pharmaceutical plant, I know personally that there are some Muslim countries which have a committee to make certain any imported medicine does not have anything that's prohibited in it. Accordingly, the pharmaceutical companies, even the biggest world pharmaceutical companies, will make certain that the medication which is going to this country is free from alcohol and gelatin free. So we have to use the means and the power which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided us with to avoid what He has prohibited.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, the next question was from Brother Qurashid. Is regarding giving sadaqah to non-Muslims. We know we can give it to Muslims. Are we allowed to give it to non-Muslims?
As-sadaqah is a very broad word that covers the mandatory zakah and it covers the voluntary charity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in verse number 60 of Surah At-Tawbah says, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينَ, and He counted the 8 categories who are eligible to take the zakah. So the word sadaqah in this verse was referring to the zakah. Al-Kuffar and non-Muslims were not included in any of these 8 categories at all. Okay? But the voluntary charity, it is permissible to give it to Muslims and non-Muslims as well. Will you receive the same reward? Yes, you will receive a reward once you give the charity regardless.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Okay, Sister Razina from the United Arab Emirates was speaking about a certain practice which takes place in her country, or rather in her home country. And she was saying her mother-in-law makes food and then recites upon it certain things which is not from the Sunnah, with a particular sect in Islam, or outside of Islam sometimes. She wants to know, is she allowed to prepare this food?
I would like to make a comment on your statement, a sect of Islam or a sect out of Islam and so on, just to clarify this to the viewers. It is true that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said his ummah, the Muslim ummah, will be divided into 73 sects in some narrations. So these sects, which the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, would be divided from the mainstream ummah, and they would call themselves Muslims, but they're not necessarily Muslims. As a matter of fact, many of them pray the same prayer and do extra acts of worship more than any of us, but they're not Muslims. So you're not blameworthy when you say that these sects are not Muslims, because the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said it in a sound hadith. All of them are in fire, all of them finnar, except one. So the Muslim ummah is only one sect, and other sects which were divided from the mainstream due to corruption in their belief, they are not considered Muslims. This is not the statement of you or me, this is the statement of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So now, we're not allowed to follow the practices of anyone who follows a sect which is known that it's one of the sects which went astray. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا مِمَّا لَمْ يُذْكَرِ اسْمُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ. And this is a straightforward prohibition. Don't you eat from anything that the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was not mentioned on it. And He prohibited us from eating from any food which was offered, slaughtered, cooked under the name of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what people do, whether in the name of the Prophet, in the name of the wali, in the name of any righteous person, in the name of any of the family members of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is totally false. And this is the same false practice that the Meccans used to do before Islam, when they slaughter their cattle or their sheep in the name of the idols, whom they believe that they are the assistants of God on earth, which is false, of course. So make sure that if somebody is offering you a food which you already know that it's been done and prepared by this mean, you're not allowed to eat it.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, we have a call from Sister Fatima from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Sister, you're live and ask her your question, please.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Yes, my question is about I know that the reason behind why man can marry 4 times, but my question is about the feeling of the wife, how you can, there is a feeling that you cannot stop from this feeling. And this feeling, you know that it's not good, but you want to know how to stop this kind of feeling, the negative feeling from the other wives. It's a very
Okay, we got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Sister.
Unfortunately, since I know that my wife and your wife must be watching right now, I would prefer postponing the answer of this question to the next episode.
Okay,
because it might take some time.
Well, actually, we've just come to the end of our episode today. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for all the answers today. We've just come to the end of the episode, but if you want to send more questions, please send a question via email to ask@huda.tv, or even send an email via SMS service there, and it'll come straight through to us. Well, until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.